of this fourth hour, we're going to be covering eugenics. Coming up in 30 minutes, how the eugenicists are using the fake environmental movement to not deal with real environmental crises and problems that the elite is actually generating, like out-of-control cross-species genetic engineering, toxic waste dumping, things of that nature. But how they're bringing in this global carbon tax and how that fits in. So for about 10 minutes, coming up in a half hour, Paul's going to pop in with some new developments on that front with record cold weather. But I wanted to, before we get into eugenics, at the start of this live hour of video at prisonplanet.tv, every day during the fourth hour we go live, I wanted to draw a picture for listeners out there, a very simple, crude picture that describes effectively the false left-right paradigm. Now, in an earlier hour, I was describing how the Republican Party props up the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party props up the Republican Party. If you had one of the political parties standing on its own, when the wind came along, it would just fall over. When pressure, revolutionary pressure from the population, not liking what's going on, or new groups wanting the power structure, which is the main source of revolution. Most of it is driven by evil, just like the elite is driven by evil. Very rare to have a altruistic revolution. By itself, a single-party system will fall over. Okay? But if you take the two-party systems and you lean them up against each other, this is basically the arch. Their force going together keeps them together and makes it become a very strong, stable platform on which they can build their hierarchical New World Order system. Okay? So the current two-party system has been dominated and bought up and controlled by the elite that sits atop it. Now, the elite with a one-party system would not be balanced on top of one party. They would be subject to being toppled, being pushed over easily. But you put the two parties up against each other, they form a royal arch. And now it's very hard to separate those two because they're leaning up against each other. I'm running out of paper. Will somebody bring me another piece of paper? I mean, this is really simple, but I want to explain this to people. Here, I've got one right here. It's fine. Check it out, folks. Why do you see so many leftists who mean well, like Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello, or the guy we had on yesterday, Henry Rollins, who are right on so many issues but then believe in leftist policies? We need a global carbon tax. But there's an elite funding that. No, the elite, the big corporations are against it because the media advertises that big corporations and oil companies are against it. Henry Rollins doesn't know, doesn't have the documents. It doesn't understand that actually that's part of a sophisticated game that, the big corporations say publicly, we don't want this, it's bad, while they actually fund it. They know that the public's awake to the fact that they're corrupt, so the public will be fooled and go and support the agenda. It's please don't throw me in the briar patch. It's the old briar rabbit situation. So that's basically what we're dealing with here. And so you've got both parties leaning into each other, supporting the other one. When we come back, I'll briefly finish this, and I promise we're getting into eugenics. It's just that the Republicans' criticism of the Democrats props them up. The Democratic criticism of the Republicans props them up. It's a very simple equation. I'm going to skip this break for InfoWars listeners because, I got Aaron in here, and he's been sitting there for 20 minutes while I took calls and went into other subjects. And, yes, your calls are coming up, too, but especially for the video viewers out there on prisonplanet.tv and all the members that rip this and put it all over the web, we appreciate that. members just get it live and in higher quality. We're very thankful to PrisonPlanet.tv members. Let me go ahead and just explain this as simply as I can. Here's the political field, and this is where the population resides. And then we supposedly, through the grassroots, come up into the political party. Okay? And then they lean on each other, as I was saying earlier, and support each other. If they're standing alone, the pressure of revolution or of new power structures will easily topple it and blow it over. But leaning together, it's not going to fall down. Okay? Now, I know that's simple, but let me give you an everyday example of this. As I said, the left sees all of these evil mainline Republicans who we know are liars and who the media even exposes as being liars. They see them lying about everything else. So if the Republicans come out and say, we're against a global carbon tax, well, then by God, I'm for a global carbon tax. And so that's how the two sides leaning up against each other give the other side support. And so Democrats over here and Republicans over here, Republicans attack Barack Obama. And then the Democrats attack John McCain. And then the population who's down here is trained to see John McCain as representing them personally, as being their daddy, of where their personal power comes from, of their camp, their brand name, their brand of soda, their brand of automobile, Ford or Chevy. And so this is a controlled paradigm. And so we have Republicans attacking Democrats, and that's the force against them. And you have Democrats attacking Republicans, and that's the force against them. And really, it's one unit supporting themselves and containing revolution, so that the people who were down here never learn that there is a world outside of this controlled paradigm. We are locked within the left-right paradigm. And then it becomes this huge pageant, this huge distraction where we analyze every facet of the two political parties, never realizing they themselves are simply a front or puppets for a larger power structure. Now, this is incredibly simple, but that's how this works. And then the two parties can limit the issues that are debated to this controlled paradigm. They can limit the scope of differences, which, if you look at it, there's almost no difference between the two, instead of getting the people to look outside the box at the wider world. Okay, we're going back live. Here we go.
It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Okay, for the rest of the hour, Aaron Dykes is with us. We did a 4-part series almost a year ago on eugenics, the history of it, how it formed, how it started, up until the modern time. But I thought, why not drag Aaron back in today to just give a basic overview instead of you meticulously going through all the facts, the diagrams, the documents. We'll cover some of those. They're covered in Endgame. There's a bibliography online for the film Endgame. Whatistheendgame.com or endgamethemovie.com. For folks out there, you can see a lot of this there on the site, or get the DVD and see it. But Aaron, I wanted to go over with you today, just basically your view on eugenics and the scientific dictatorship, because during a break, I was briefly talking about the scientific dictatorship in the first hour. I spent about 30 minutes on it, and you're like, I can't believe more hosts don't talk about the scientific dictatorship. I can't believe more people aren't aware of the scientific dictatorship, because it really is the key to everything, understanding the elite. So from now until the next segment, give people a basic historical rundown, what we're dealing with, the elitist mindset, how eugenics tied in perfectly with the mindset that elites and royals already had of themselves being a different breed, like going back to Plato believed, engineering, breeding the population. Break it down for us, just a basic overview today, because this really is what governs our entire planet, and it deserves more discussion.
Well, eugenics, by definition, was the whole movement to control human breeding according to supposedly scientifically crafted elite minds. And it fits in perfectly well with the way world government and control of societies in the 20th century took place, too. It's all about engineered society, engineered populations. And the whole idea is that the general public, cannot see above the threshold to make proper decisions, so they have to be made for us.
And again, we see that at every level of left to right control paradigm. They're always trying to shorten the horizon, bring in the blinders, bring people into a very small, looking at the world through a straw instead of in a big panoramic view, limiting the data, limiting the terms, to where people stay in their parties, stay in their racial groups, stay in their regional groups, and then they can play us off against each other using basic psychology.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you put it that way, actually, because from Edward Bernays to Carroll Quigley, all the way up to Ray Kurzweil in the modern day, and also Brzezinski in the 70s, they've all used the same basic metaphor of shrinking time and space throughout the 20th century being the reason we have to have this world government. And
that's what Orwell says. He says we're going to destroy the language, shrink it down, limit its use to where you can't physically communicate with people.